It's peach season over here in the Bay, so I thought it'd be nice to share one of my favorite super easy but kind of impressive looking recipes. On today's episode, we're gonna pick the perfect peach using science and our senses, talk a little bit of history, and of course learn how to make this German classic at home. Usually, I like to start off these episodes with a quick field trip to a local restaurant, but Pfirsich Streuselkuchen or peach streusel cake is pretty much something you're only gonna find in a home kitchen. So let's get to it. In truth, the classic way to make this dessert is with some canned peaches. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and in fact it makes it sort of an easy year-round kind of thing, but since it's July, let's go ahead and pick up some of these fresh ones. Just so you guys know, there are generally around 4 different kinds of peaches that you're going to see in the store. The classic yellow peach, which is typically soft when ripe and has a slight tartness, and there's these. In Asia, white peaches are king. They're enjoyed kind of hard and crispy, sort of like an apple, but a little bit juicier, and they have a very, very sweet bite with very little acidity. You're also going to definitely come across these nectarines, and yes, nectarines are a type of peach, just a special variety that happens to not have any of the fuzz. And then finally, you have these kind of funny looking donut peaches, which are actually usually just a type of white peach. So they're going to have that similar crunch and low acidity. For today's dessert, I find that the acidity and the cost effectiveness of the yellow peaches make them the best choice. Pick a few that have a nice strong fragrance, and just a note on picking fruits in general, if they smell like nothing, they're going to taste like nothing. These are some yellow peaches that I picked from my own tree. They're starting to get a little bit overripe, so I'll grab a few of the ugly ones and get to work. I like to remove the skins whenever I use peaches. I find that it really helps with the overall texture, and it's pretty easy to get done. Just cut a couple lines around the fruit from top to bottom in an X pattern like this, and we're cutting just the skin here, not getting into the meat at all. Then in a pot of boiling water, just roll them around a bit until the skin starts to contract a bit, and that should take about 30 seconds on each side. Then you can just remove them and set them aside to cool. At this point, the skin should come off with almost no work at all. Just slide it off and get the fruit prepped with a quick slice in half. Be careful though, it's super slippery, and then you can remove the seeds. I like to cut the fruit into fairly thick wedges for a nice bite later on, so that's perfect. So set it all aside and then get ready to prep the batter. In a large bowl, beat your eggs with the sugar at a pretty constant pace until things get really frothy and foamy. Oh, and before I forget, add in some vanilla extract here. Mix that until everything is totally combined and the sugar is fully dissolved. Then at this point you can add in your melted butter and continue to beat with a whisk. This whole mixing process might take a while if you don't have an electric mixer, but be patient. This step is really going to help out with the texture later on. Once things have become noticeably lighter in color and the mix is nice and frothy, you can carefully sift in about half of your flour and baking powder. Mix that in until most of the flour disappears, and then add in the rest of your flour and then mix. This mixing action is really good at creating long and tough gluten strands, which is really bad if we want a nice and tender cake. So for best results, we're going to want to mix this batter until the flour is just combined, and then leave it at that. It's sort of a similar principle to why people say to not try and mix the lumps out of a pancake batter, or why we shouldn't overwork cookie dough. The action of mechanical agitation, aka mixing in the presence of water, gets the proteins gliadin and glutenin to form a tough and chewy mesh known as gluten, and we can avoid all of that by just mixing it less. When your batter is fully mixed, go ahead and lay it in a well-buttered baking dish and then top it with your peach slices. Just sort of lay them in one layer. Oh, and it's worth noting that some folks in Germany prefer a thin cake like this, so if you want to try that out, just cut the batter recipe in half. I prefer the nice and tall version, so that's what I'm going to show you today. Peaches are in, so it's time to prep the streusel real quick. It's super simple, just mix your flour and sugar together with just a pinch of nutmeg or cinnamon or whatever warm spice you want to use, and add in a couple pinches of salt and drizzle in some butter. Whisk that together until combined, and then sort of use your fingers to break up the large pieces and make sure that everything is more or less kind of crumbly like this. There's no exact science to this, but in general we want a decently consistent pebbly texture to give us a nice appearance and crunch. Just sprinkle that on top of the peach slices as evenly as you can get it, and then stick it all in the oven set at 375 while we talk some history. The origin of Streuselkuchen is a bit hard to pinpoint exactly since it's mostly a home-style dessert. That said, most folks agree that it came from either Upper Saxony in eastern Germany or the neighboring Silesia in modern-day Poland. Records of the dish gaining popularity in said regions can be found in written works dating from around the 19th century, although it's worth noting that there are some earlier mentions of the dish dating from around the 16th century. As for when peaches were added to the cake, it's also up in the air. Peaches were introduced to Europe from Asia as early as 300 BC in Greece, so it's probably safe to say that the creation of peach Streuselkuchen was only a matter of time, and there are other Streuselkuchen versions too with all sorts of different fruits. That said, the modern convenient version made with canned peaches can find their origin in post-war German kitchens during the mid-20th century, where canned goods were a household staple due to the relative cost-effectiveness compared to fresh fruit. Alright, where were we? Oh yeah. It's been about 40 minutes and the edges of this cake are just beautifully browned and the streusel top is still a nice light gold color, absolutely perfect. Just take this guy out and let it cool for another half hour or so, which is just enough time to do something fun like subscribing to this channel. Alright, at long last this cake is finally done, so let's give it a try. It cuts super nicely and wow, look at that fluffy sponge. It really is a lovely dessert. The cake is moist and tender and the streusel is buttery, sort of got a cookie-like texture, and the freshly picked peaches just sort of perfume everything beautifully. Enjoy it with a scoop of ice cream or a nice cup of coffee and you're golden. Well, that's going to be it for today. If you liked what you saw, feel free to leave a like down below. It really helps YouTube notice the channel. And if you're new here, we love doing deep dives into a bunch of random recipes from around the world, so if you want to see your favorite dish here, let us know in the comment section below, and I'll add it to the list. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day.
I harvested another pumpkin yesterday. We have nothing but pumpkins in the backyard. I've been trying to grow cucumbers, and when they're young, pumpkins and cucumber plants, they look very similar, right? 2 years straight, I've been growing pumpkins, ginormous pumpkins, but I want cucumber. I haven't grown a single cucumber in 2 years. Because, 3 years ago, I got a whole bunch of leftover pumpkins from school because we did pumpkin carving. So I had like 24 pumpkins. So I put them I buried them in the raised bed, right? For them to decompose and feed the soil. And of course, now ever since then, I grow nothing but pumpkins. In the future, maybe we could do something with pumpkins.